Welcome to another episode of Euphoric, the podcast. I'm here with Shelby Perry. I cannot wait to get into her story. Shelby, how are you doing today?
I am great. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to
Yeah.
be here.
Can you tell the listeners a little bit about you and what you do?
Absolutely. So, I am a life coach and I specifically work with people that have had life-altering injuries, as that is part of my story. I lost my right eye, which we can get into more details later on, but I also have a history of alcohol abuse and drinking alcoholically. And so I got sober right before I lost my eye. And so I don't specifically coach people on like that, but that is a big part of my story and intertwines into a lot of my coaching and just the self-development work that I do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So much to unpack there. I can't wait to get into your story. Let's start with the alcohol free part. So I think you mentioned you're going to be 4 years pretty soon, alcohol free. What was going on in your life? Like, how did you come to make that decision? Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started young for me, in my early teens, and it started out just as a party. It was a lot of fun, and I thought that that's what everybody just did. And it rolled into my 20s, and again, just what I thought everybody was doing, and have partying, having a good time. And I was able to, from the outside, look like things were well. I, kept a job and had my a rent paid and a car. And so, there was a lot of denial within the way that I was drinking and the amount. And, the nights I always took it too far, I could make a lot of excuses. I still made it to work the next day. I still got my bills paid. I still um, felt like I was living a productive, normal life. And, I come from an alcoholic family as well, too. And theirs looks a lot worse, quote unquote, than mine did. So that fed again into my denial. And as things just continued and didn't get any better, I hit the age of like 29 and I was convinced I'm like, at 30, I'll be a new person. And now I'm 29 and the pandemic hit and it really, kept me isolated in my house. Any sense of normalcy I had with my job, with social activities were, taken away at that point. And I met myself in my room, drinking from morning to night, being like, oh, this isn't getting better and I need help. And it hit me like a like a train, I guess, that just felt like there's something is wrong here and I don't like the person that I'm continuing on in this path. So I made the decision to get, sober, alcohol free, and do you want me to go into that part
Yeah,
now?
sure. Yeah, let's
Okay.
go.
So I called a friend. So at the time I was living in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I called a friend that lives in San Diego, and she had gone sober 5 years prior, and she did her journey through AA. And I didn't really know at that time, like I just came across you in the last like 6 or 10 months maybe, and I hadn't really like heard or knew of the concept of like alcohol free, of like living this life and doing it um any other way other than AA, just from TV and then from my friend. And so, I just called her and in the middle of a blackout, and she's like, you're moving to San Diego. And so she got me out here in the middle of the pandemic. And, being involved out here and in the AA community, people go through sober livings and they do the meetings and treatments and 12 steps and all of that. And so that was my experience and still is. I work that program through AA. But then coming across you and kind of seeing this alcohol free, a different energy of it, I guess, and reading your book just helped immensely on my path, like continuing on it, and we can go, like, I kind of want to talk about that too, in case you do have some listeners that are maybe from AA background or have experienced that, and how beneficial it was for me to like pick up your book and to see other people doing it just in a different form. And it just, any pieces I felt like that were kind of missing, I got from your book, like just that belief work that they don't really teach us too much in AA, and just the longevity of like going alcohol free and the community and, new ways and new perspectives to look at it. has just been so beneficial in my recovery. And, I will have 4 years at the end of April. And I think we all hit a point, on our journey where it's kind of like, wait, I need something new. I need like a change. Like, is this really how I'm going to live for the rest of my life? And I just see you like bridging that gap, giving people that extra sense of purpose, of community, of like, it doesn't just stop here. It's not just about putting down the alcohol. It's like you get a whole new life. And when that life starts to feel comfy, you get it to do it again in a different way. So I just love that. And that's, where the space that I'm at right now too is like, it got comfy and I got a little stir crazy. And so it's expanding into more a lot living, more life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Shelby, you like are making my day today. Thank you so much. You're so sweet. Everything you said about my book and just this approach. And, I think what's so incredible is I think there is a deeper unfulfillment when we're stuck in a relationship with alcohol. And it's hard to see that, and that is to me the like most sustainable route, like change our beliefs around alcohol, change our patterns, obviously, change our behaviors around it. But then it's like once we find that sense of pure fulfillment, when it's really giving back and honoring our purpose on this planet, it's like that drink is never going to look as alluring ever again because you are truly in your life's purpose, and I think that's so key what you've done. Um, let's get deep into it. So a little 10 months after you went alcohol free, almost over 3 years ago, you got into an accident. So what happened?
Yeah. So I'd been, had worked all 12 of my steps through AA and I'd built a good foundation here within the community and I had a good amount of friends. And so that was feeling good. I finally felt, at that point, like, okay, I'm getting back on my feet. Things are like working out. The pandemic was lightening up and I just really felt in this space, like ready to go, at 10 months, I'm like, yeah, I got this. And, I take a group of friends back to Salt Lake City to go on a snowboarding trip, which I grew up there. I grew up on the mountains, been doing it since I could walk. And yeah, I got into this accident and it resulted in the removal of my right eye. Obviously, at the time of the incident, they tried to save my right eye. And so I went about 2 months with still having my damaged eye and it trying to repair itself. And literally the day after I took 1 year of alcohol free, they removed my eye. So it's like my 1 year like celebration and mark. And then the next day they removed the eye. So it was, kind of a lot and set me back in a sense, but so much beauty again has come out of that experience and everything that I learned getting and staying alcohol free directly affected and impacted in my experience through losing my eye. And I just know that if I hadn't put down the drink prior, it would have been a very different story. And I do get a lot of people like, how did you not pick up a drink after something like that? And, there was a lot of at play there too. And like my higher power and leaning on my community a ton, like so much. And then of course, using the tools that I had already learned and, being able to really put those into action like immediately at that
Yeah,
time
yeah,
too.
yeah. So I'm gonna ask a few more questions about this. So like you're snowboarding, right? And did you hit something? Did you fall? Did you like something impaled the eye? And then how long were you in the hospital?
I was, yeah, so it was just a little tree, and I was in the hospital from for just for 3 days at the time. So it happened on a Sunday. They did surgery then. I did surgery on Wednesday again, and then I was released. And then I stayed in Salt Lake because they did some more checkups for like a whole week. But I wasn't staying at the hospital any longer. So we flew back to San Diego about a week later.
Yeah, yeah. There's this thing in coaching called the victim mindset where like almost doesn't matter what's happening in your life, whether it's good or bad, that like you almost always think bad things are happening and that you're powerless over it and that there's just no sense of causation or that like if you did something differently, maybe your life would change. And of all the people who could ever feel like a victim, like you just lost your eye. Like you have a very, very credible reason to like feel despair and hopelessness. Was there a period of time where you felt like that despair before you were able to kind of use your story and what you went through to help other people?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a lot that I do coach on for people in, you know, my same situation, because that is an immediate, you know, most of the people I work with have had, you know, accidents. And so those happen, you know, in the blink of an eye. And a lot of them are really, I want to say, like more on the bizarre side, or the things that you just wouldn't expect. Because I don't, when it comes to an eye, and I think people think, okay, like broken bones, broken legs, broken arms, whatever. But I don't think anyone in their life really thinks about like losing an eye and how kind of frequent and often that can happen. They're just, they're pretty sensitive things. And if something hits it, you know, not to like scare anybody, but I'm like, I've heard every kind of story out there. And so I get, you know, a lot, and that was my experience. And that's why I'm like this, you know, getting through that portion of like the why did this happen to me? Like I should have done this, I could have done this, why didn't I do this? If only, you know, all of those ifs, ands, and buts, and being able to work through those on my own. And that was about, you know, the first 6 months, I want to say, after. And once I hit this kind of turning point of like, there is a greater purpose for this and for my story. And, you know, at first I knew I just wanted a community, because again, I believe so strongly that community is important, but more community that can relate to you on what you're going through. So it's like my friends and family were amazing. They did the best that they could. They still do. But I was like, I need someone that's lost an eye. I need some people that know what it's like to live with a prosthetic eye. And, you know, and I knew that from getting sober and how beneficial, you know, going alcohol free and having other people on that same journey, that same path. And so I needed that for the eye injury. So it just started out like community building and connecting, and that really started to grow. And then I was like seeing people struggle with the same things that I was struggling with at one point, and maybe not even in their first year, but years later, still kind of working through some of that stuff, and just never being able to talk one-on-one with someone that's been through that same situation. And so then that's when I developed the coaching and do what I do today.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, and you don't know how helpful that is. Like whenever I think we're going through a challenge and it feels so isolating, so unique to us, and like no one else in the world could possibly understand. And it is something that is like pretty unique, right? Like you don't meet everyone every day, you know, who's gone through something like this. So to be able to not only form that community, but then to also have that deeply healing coaching work and what you're doing in the world, I mean, I think it's making such a big difference. And I'm just curious, Shelby, like because of this experience and some of the people that you work with, do you ever have like a BS reader where you're like, when other people are complaining or other people are like commiserating about their life and you just want to shake them and be like, what are you talking about? You have everything?
Oh yeah, yes. Yes, yeah, I see that a lot and feel that a lot. And it's funny because my friends will, they witness me go through this, and so they kind of have that towards other people, that they're like, well, have you met Shelby? You know, like you need to work with Shelby.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
I
then
know.
like for anyone listening, I have to actually had this like happen. And this is like how steeped I was in victim mindset before I like went alcohol free myself and became a coach and stuff. Have you ever heard of Amy Purdy?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so she's a pretty famous snowboarder, and she lost both of her legs, or like her lower half of her legs, to meningitis when she was like in high school. And so she went on to recover from that, and she started snowboarding again with prosthetics, and then became a motivational speaker. And I remember landing upon her book when I was like in the thick of my victim mindset. And I literally thought this thought, Shelby. It was like, well, of course you can become a motivational speaker. You lost your legs. And I was like thinking like that was some kind of requirement that like you had to go through something so horrible in order to like be empowered. And I couldn't become empowered in my own life. So it's like, it's so interesting when you meet people who are so empowering, and you're in that victimhood mindset, anything can trigger you to think that I just can't do this. You know what I mean? But I think you're such a good example of like going through adversity and becoming stronger through it, and even stepping further into your purpose by helping people with this very specific, you know, life occurrence that without you, there'd literally be no one to talk to about it and be able to go through it. And so I really do, like, I hope this didn't happen for a bigger reason, but like in a way, you've made meaning out of it. You know what I mean? You've made a path for yourself, and finding that deeper purpose of helping other people who've gone through these kind of injuries. Like, how has that led to your own sense of fulfillment and impact in your life?
Yeah, so it's, I changed the entire trajectory of my recovery. And I think the people that I do come across, that are late or further on in their journey, I guess, they experienced their eye injury a long time ago. They, still have a lot of the struggles in like the year one that I experienced. And I think the only difference is like, because I've had the community and I've been able to connect with people one-on-one and hear their stories and relate with them, that it is like sped up my recovery, we'll say, or my fulfillment or my purpose, and healed me in a way that I am pretty sure that if I didn't go out and do this, that I would still be in that victim mindset. I would still be struggling with a lot of things that I was struggling with at the beginning. Um, so, the healing aspect and I'm a big believer that like sharing your story has so much healing in itself. And then reading and listening to other people also has another level of healing in itself too. So I'm like encouraged on both of those. And I can just feel the difference within the way I like own and embrace my story. And it's directly correlates to the work that I've done within the community that I run.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think it, like, helped you, like, get stronger in your sobriety at all? Or, like, was there a moment where it was, like, too much to bear a little bit at first?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I do think it did, honestly, because going through something like that and having to make the decision that I'm not going to pick up a drink over this. And it seemed a little bit easy right when it first happened because there was so much going on that I was just going through the motions and trying to get through it. So I didn't really think about it too much right then. And it wasn't until later when I started to like recover and feel good. And then I had lost again that sense of purpose or fulfillment or like what's next and why did this happen to me, like those kind of things set in. I felt like was set back in life again. I felt like because at COVID everything was taken from me, and I was in my drinking days then, so it felt really real that everything was taken from me. And then I was still in this, or this had happened, and I still had some of those lingering victim mentalities. And I'm like, everything's been taken from me again. I have to start all the way over. And so it made me lean back into like why I went alcohol free and the tools that I had learned day one and like implemented them again and got through that portion too. So it definitely created a scenario where it did make me stronger within my sobriety journey too.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's like right away you were faced with like this horrible thing that happened. It's like a lot of people think like, oh, well, I'm fine now, but like I don't know what's gonna happen if like my spouse died or this happened or that happened. And it's like right away the universe had you confront something like that. And you were able to like literally, I think, face like a biggest fear and still manage to come out successful. So like I don't know about you, but did you feel super powerful, like almost like superwoman going through this? Like to be able to say that like even this can happen to me and I'm still going to be standing and I'm still going to be focused on my like healing and my well-being and like my purpose.
Yeah, and again, I don't think I felt that right away. It's kind of looking back on it now that I'm like, oh yeah. And like I knew at the beginning when I had like put down the drink that I was like, okay, well, like what you just said, maybe if my like parents pass away or if this thing happens, like I'll probably for sure pick up. And now that I went through that, like I don't think there's anything that would, make me pick up today. I like that empowered feeling of like making it through that. I'm like, I know I can make it through anything.
Yeah, yeah. And so like I think there's so much also philosophizing that happens when you're trying to make sense of things and you're also trying to like make something positive out of this, which you definitely have, with your business and the way that you're able to help and bring community together. But like through thinking through all of that, like what do you think of adversity or why do you think bad things happen or we go through challenges? And you don't have to have like a universal answer for everyone, but like what meaning have you made for you in your life?
Yeah. So on both of those, I always might, a lot of times at the beginning of something like that, you hear the people use the words or the phrase like everything happens for a reason, those kind of things. And I have created this space that I fully believe it's like whether it's a reason or not, my go-to is like everything happens to help people or help someone else. And that's like my predominant thought. And that's so I work with, sponsees through AA and that talk about shaking people. Those girls, I love them to death, but sometimes I'm like, you're gonna be okay, I promise. That boy isn't worth it. But they come to me with like these different scenarios in their own life. And my first response is always like, you are going to help another woman with this one day. And that's been my response and my experience. Like these women come to me with things and I'm like, yep, live that. This is what helped me, So it's like everything happens to help other people. And so that's just the energy and the mindset that I lead with every scenario, good and bad. And then as far as adversity, I think that this is my experience again, is like adversity can absolutely be turned into an opportunity. And that comes in all forms. And again, like you had already said, it doesn't have to be something super traumatic or this incredible like transformation, like putting down alcohol per se. It's just like going back in our past sometimes and just identifying like a scenario maybe or a situation or experience like from childhood or early adulthood, and you're like, oh, I did make it through that and this is what really helped me. And like there's opportunity to help people with that, there's opportunity to create things from that, there's opportunity to build an impact from that, and it doesn't have to be the most craziest thing out there. It can simply be like maybe you got fired from a job, because of X, Y, or Z. And like that experience alone and how you navigated that situation can absolutely be an opportunity for something in your life today.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of something that's embarrassing or you feel shame about, like that's exactly how you can transmute those feelings. And I couldn't agree with you more, Shelby. And I love how succinctly and like articulately you put it of just like things happen so we can help other people. And I do personally believe, and again, these are my personal beliefs, so they don't have to be universal, but like what is the purpose of life? Like it comes down to these two things for me is A, to know ourselves, and B, to help other people. And it's through A that we're able to do B, basically, when we fully know ourselves and understand ourselves. And like that's what it's about, you know what I mean? And to make your life based on that, there's this incredible book by Viktor Frankl called A Man's Search for Meaning. And it was a Holocaust survivor who was actually a psychologist before he went into the concentration camps. So as he was there experiencing just pure horror, he was able to really pick up and notice the difference between the people who were passing on and dying, from malnourishment quite quickly versus the ones who survived, and it's the ones who survived had made meaning out of the experience. Meaning maybe it was like, I'm going to survive for my family, for my like wife, but also the meaning of like, I'm going to survive so that we can tell the world that this happened and that they will never happen again. Or I'm going to survive to, do some, peace building mission in the future. And it was those people who survived. And I love that book because it's like, even in suffering, we can have dignity and we can help other people. And I think that's like our ticket through suffering. You know what I mean? Because when we make it super focused about me, which is obviously a natural response and everyone will go through that phase too. But like when you can transmute it to like how it can help other people, I mean, you must have some of the most rewarding conversations and just coaching sessions with your clients, right?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because I get to experience people like in the early stages, and going through that. But then I've also experienced and helped people that are kind of out of that and they now want to build their own impact, or they've already started to share their story and create a brand and speak on podcasts. And they just want to expand that and involve that and be able to do it in a way that they're in their own power and their own like self-confidence and self-love. And so it's just to see the spectrum of people and their experiences and what they're doing and creating with their stories is really so powerful and amazing. And just like, I'm here for it all.
Yeah. Oh, I just got chills. That feels so good. Well, Shelby, let's imagine it's 3 to 5 years into the future and your business takes off, your message takes off, your community takes off. What is the ultimate version of success and fulfillment for you? Like what would you love to see with this happen?
So I would love like this is like the biggest vision ever. But it'd be, a conference in person or online, but conference for, my community and kind of even broader with anybody that's been in a life-altering injury or experience. So whether they've been paralyzed in a car accident, they've lost a limb, they've gone through, maybe something I'm not even aware of. And I just like am speaking on stage and I look out over this crowd of people that have all overcome this type of injury and incident, and their, the networking and the connections and the coaching and the fundamental life building that we get to create with one another and from one another, even though we have different stories and experiences and come from different places. I just feel like that's like the ultimate goal for this.
Oh my gosh. Well, I definitely see it. Like you are the definition of a true leader for me. You really, I think, are gonna go so big, so far with this. The world out there needs it, you know what I mean? And especially since it doesn't exist already and it's not easy to find, like this, I think, is your mission and your destiny to create for other people. And I mean, I think I see you speaking on stages, like having a lot of other big leaders invite you in for speaking, because I think your story is really impactful. And, to appreciate, a lot of people say this to me and I don't really recognize it because I'm like, oh, whatever. But like, you're pretty young, right? So it's like all of this wisdom and all of this like life philosophy and meaning and depth to you to be able to help someone, like without these hard experiences, who knows what kind of depth you would be able to achieve, right, as a person. And I think that's just really, really just remarkable and inspiring to other people. And I just want to see you flourish and go out there and be big and stuff, because I know you'll make a difference, obviously for the community you're trying to reach, but I think everyone else just to watch that as well. It's super inspiring to see just that human strength and human resilience and human inspiration beneath it all.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And I want to touch on the age part too, because I think, and maybe other of your followers have experienced this, like I felt so behind, like when I finally put down the drink and I was like, why didn't I do this 10 years earlier? And I felt this growth in me pretty quickly. And I'm like, imagine where I would be if I'd put the drink down like so much younger. And I just was hard on myself for being like so behind or just feeling so behind. And things I do think happen quickly when we're, connected to ourselves, like you said, like finding ourselves and going through the process of doing that. Things can quantum leap within ourselves quickly. So that feels good. And then we're never behind, and it's like without the 15 years of drinking and partying like I did, like the experiences I have from that still help me today and actually create, where I'm at today too. So I always have to like remember that instead of trying to be shameful of that or like diminish what I was doing in my early 20s is a waste of time. And yeah, so I just appreciate you bringing that up too.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely felt the same. Like, what if I found this all in my like early 20s? But like just like you said, like we needed the contrast. Like you have to face like the depths and the darkness to really appreciate the new purpose that you have and be so hungry now to live this incredibly awakened life, right? Because it's actually easier to be asleep, right? It's easier to just be numb and just, there's a lot of problems with it, but at a soul level, I think it's the braver thing to be awakened, and it's a lot more fulfilling too. But like talking of comfort zones, we know which one people will pick, and I think that you need that experience, I think. And that's why, a lot of spiritual philosophies say that, we kind of know everything before we're born, and then we come here and we kind of forget it all, right? We forget what our purpose is, we forget what we're supposed to do here. And a lot of us can live just with inertia for the rest of our lives and never figure out what we want to do, And it's like when we finally do, that experience of forgetting and sleeping at the wheel basically is what really makes it so profound when you're awake, And it's like I will never squash this opportunity because I know how rare and precious and beautiful it is, and I can feel that energy around you. Is there anything that you would like to request of the listeners? Like, is there any support you would like, or whether it's following you on social media or, doing anything? Is there any requests you have for us?
Oh yeah. So I mean, of course, a follow is always deeply appreciated on any of my social media. So I'm mostly on Instagram, but of course I got Facebook and TikTok, but I spend most of my time on Instagram at iHesive. And then I do a lot of like community Zoom events and master classes pretty regularly, like almost once a week, if not like every other week. And so if anyone is just kind of wants to pop in, a lot of them are free and are curious about that, they can definitely reach out or just come and come and sit in and check it out too. So or share it with someone if they know anyone that's going through obviously a life altering injury, they've lost an eye, or just have something about their story where they feel off and they just want that community, they want to know how to like navigate situations, people's responses, just really being in their own power again. Send them my way.
All right. Well, we will do that, audience, but go find Shelby, go support her. I think it's so beautiful what you're doing. Any last words of wisdom you'd like to share of just the experiences you've had and what you know to be true now because of it?
Yeah, I think it's you know, the community aspect is forever important, and it's one thing to have the community. It's another thing to like ask for help and receive help. So if you're going through something, even if you have a long time, quote unquote, alcohol free, or you've really gone through something that's rocked your world, making sure to reach out to someone, ask for help, and then receive help if people are offering the help too. Because I know our pride sometimes gets in the way of that too. So it's okay to allow that help in.
Beautifully said. I know that's something I struggled with too. I'm very independent. So receiving help is often not the easiest thing, but it's so beautiful. Like that's what we're here to do is give and receive at the same time. And that's what makes us better givers too, is to be able to receive that too. Well, Shelby, we'll be sure to link your Instagram, your pages in our show notes. Thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your story with us. It was such a good conversation. I think you really brightened some people's days today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on today.